Another very cool rally today at the Capitol. Did you see this, Dave? This is like basically your backyard where they do these things, right? Mm-hmm. Did you enjoy it today?
I did not go out and check it out. I was recovering from a Sunday fun day that involved the museum, followed by Bloody Marys.
Sounds to me like you're not interested in citizens' rights.
Yeah.
Well, I'm taking us off track already. It's going to be quite an episode today. So what happened?
Well, you went to the museum and then had too much to drink, and then were too hungover to go to the cool Proud Boy rally that happened next to your house. So that's where we're at so far.
Oh, there were Proud Boys?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. There was the usual who's who, arrangement. The guy, all the ones who come from like Modesto and Placerville and all those guys, they were here. There was some other guy who's like famous for being like an open racist and like homophobe who like wears an orange shirt with a black vest, I guess is his thing. Okay. And he says mean stuff about people and minority groups and whatnot. So that's cool.
Oh my God.
He was there.
Great. What?
Who else was there?
Well, funny you should
tell us
ask.
Who else was there?
There's
please.
Somebody else who's been kind of a regular at these things lately. A friend of the show, actually. County Supervisor Sue Frost once again is at the anti-vax rally doing her thing.
I am shocked,
baby. How and this is like at least the second thing we've seen her at in the last week, where she is showing up claiming she's formerly a nurse and then just spouting utter nonsense about the vaccines, right?
Yeah, rocks.
So okay, yeah. So I wasn't there.
What are we upset about?
Yeah.
Anna Wiley at the Bee was covering this pretty well, and so I did get to see a couple of things here and there about that. But Sue Frost was just stirring it up again.
Yeah, honestly, I honestly do think it rocks. I think it's very cool. I fully support. Like anytime anybody goes mask off, and I feel like the County Board of Supervisors does it more than like any other governing board that I'm familiar with, right? Like one of my hero moments with that board is Phil Cerna just like completely going off on Trump supporters, completely dropping any pretense of like, hey, I'm willing to listen to anybody, and just be like, nope, I hate these people and I'm gonna be real loud about it on Facebook. Like, good for you, man. I'm here for that sort of action. And I feel like so you
mean mask off in like the classical sense of, this is who I am, not okay. It's a different connotation.
I feel like Sue was kind of doing a similar thing where she's like, I am like, I think the Proud Boys are cool and I'm tired of acting like I don't. So, I'm going for it. And I mean, you do you got to live your best life, Sue.
That's it. And she actually shows up, like she does things mask off, including Board of Supervisors meetings.
Yeah, physically mask off.
They
have to put a glass casing around her so that she doesn't infect the other Board of Soup members. She's fascinating. So yeah, she showed up to this thing. Did you see the flyer being passed out?
I did see the flyer being passed out. And speaking of things that rock, it rocks.
100%.
So there's this mysterious flyer being passed out at this anti-vaxxer event with Proud Boys and Sue Frost and some racist guy that wears orange and black. What does this flyer say?
Understanding emergency powers and how they impact citizen rights. This is a flyer for a learning institute called the Guerrilla Learning Institute. Not now you might think that it's like the gorilla, like GUE,
but it's actually like the
It is
No.
not that gorilla. And it's not clear that the person who started this learning institute knows that there's a difference between these two things, but
I
but
think
it
the
rocks.
icon is a gorilla reading a book.
And this gorilla
In front of the American flag.
The gorilla seems to be wearing spectacles.
Oh,
I think that gorilla is wearing glasses.
oh, it's incredible.
You can sponsor this learning institute, and there's 5 different tiers of sponsorship, starting from independence, which is only the $250 range. By the way,
cheap.
As we do this, I'm advocating for us changing the Patreon tiers for this show as well, to mimic these, because this is way better than what we do.
The gorilla learners.
So they have the independence tier, the equality tier, which is $500.
I'm sure they're about that.
The justice tier, which is $1,000. The liberty tier, which is $2,500, and then just guess as to what the $5,000 tier is called. Don't. It is called the freedom tier. So the freedom
that's
tier.
what I was gonna say. I thought it was already said. Okay.
No,
I was staring at it, so I couldn't really guess.
I like too that this sort of ranks these qualities. So like freedom to these people is worth like 5 times as much as justice.
Oh,
like they have it, like there's numbers, it's like numerically ranked here. So the other cool thing about this understanding emergency powers thing is that it is advertising an event that apparently is happening right now as we are recording.
As we record, yes.
This podcast. Yeah. So this has already happened by the time you're listening to it. This is
not an event.
To quote this flyer, an oldfashioned town hall fundraiser.
Correct. Not an event. Let's get it right.
Yep.
Featuring they have some real heavy hitter guests on this. Our one of our favorites, Sheriff Scott Jones,
Lowe's yoga buddy,
to weigh in with his expertise on law enforcement during a pandemic. Sure. And then another great guest is Assemblyman Kevin Kiley.
Lovely man.
And then a guy named Kevin Snyder from the Pacific Justice Institute. Do you know, have either of you ever heard of Kevin Snyder?
I think I just learned about him today, actually.
No, I haven't, but I can only imagine what kind of a person he is.
Yeah.
His area of expertise is just a question that says, how far reaching is government authority?
It's a fantastic question, Kevin.
No. Kevin, can you take this one? The question is, how far reaching is government authority? And go.
Too far.
Like,
I'm gonna guess that Kevin thinks it reaches a little too far.
He's like, you know what? Too far. Mic drop.
Okay. So no, I was not at this thing today. No, none of the 3 of us are at this event this Monday evening. But a friend of the show reached out to me and sent me this flyer, and then they also sent me the government filing of this group, this Guerrilla Learning Institute.
Oh, because they're a 501c3.
Well, it's listed as one on this flyer, but according to the state, it's actually a corporation. So I don't know who's grifting who here. But this corporation, I'll give you one guess on who owns this corporation.
Kevin Snyder? Sue Frost.
Close. Sue Frost. Sacramento
up.
County Supervisor Sue Frost owns this corporation.
God, it just rocks. Honestly, it rocks.
Teaching a bunch of gorillas about the ills of big government as we speak.
Yeah, it's happening right now.
For $25.
Yeah. Also, you have to pay
$25
to attend this great event as well. Even probably you could, if you're like a freedom tier sponsor, they would probably
just show up for
yeah. I mean, it's fascinating. Our boy Marcos Bertone wrote a piece about how she's off her rocker this week in the Bee. And it's just astounding to me. You know, he claims that Breton's like, this is the reddest district in the county, blah, blah, blah. If you look at from this week, voter registration in Sioux Frost district, there's only out of like 180,000, registered voters, there's only a 5,000 voter difference between Republicans and Democrats over there. And yet they continue to keep her in place. It's just, it's fascinating to me. But yeah,
I mean, it sounds like we could maybe learn a thing or two from the Guerrilla Learning Institute, because apparently she's got it dialed in,
Well, maybe we attend the next one. We'll use all of our patrons' money to be a freedom tier and see what happens.
I mean, I was gonna mention this after we were done recording, but I emptied the coffers to become. We're already freedom tier sponsors, is what I'm trying to say. So
I know we try and
Super
run this
dope.
by each other before we do any of this, but I fully support this.
Okay, good. Yeah, no. The reason I felt like I could do it is because I knew that nobody.
We were all getting a green light.
Yeah, exactly. I knew before we even started that you wouldn't have any issues with it.
All right, Sue. Looking forward to more of you and your guerrilla warfare. Speaking of which, let's get started on an episode.
All right.
Okay.
Voices, the things they said. Voices, some from those dead. All the voices heard. Voices, things we say. Voices, they're in your head. All the voices heard.
Hello, everyone. You have Kempa.
And you have Skylar.
Whoa. And Shannon.
And we have no Flo today. Flo is, being the civil servant that she is, running the Measure U committee, this being the third Monday of the month. Is it the third?
Yeah.
I guess.
Probably. That's
What
when the
month is
meeting
it?
is.
August?
Unless she's actually at the Guerrilla Learning Institute.
Wow, maybe.
Right.
Flo, if you are freedom tiering it
I
over
mean,
there-
she is. We all are.
Oh yeah, we all are now. Well, I hope she's taking notes, because I'm devastated to be missing everything that's going on over in Sue's little enclave. No, so Flo is running the Measure U committee today. Skylar, this is the first episode that I get to be on here with you since our Full House episode, discussing all the madness at City Hall. So
That's true. I know.
I'm just so excited to.
I know.
to
And
be
it
here
feels
with
so good to be doing the show with you. And of
Yes.
course, as usual, with you, Shannon.
Thank you.
I'm going to state, just because, there might be cranky people listening to this. Just so it is very crystal 100% clear, the opinions expressed by myself on this show are not representative of anybody else, anything else other than just me and my personal time, and cannot be misconstrued as being representative of anything except for that.
You love to hear it.
I know I do.
Yeah, I love it. I love when like little RE grass witches are writing their things in their insides about this stuff, and it's just like, well, if we don't make that much of a difference, why are you still talking about us and writing about us all the time? Like, just let us do our little show then, if no one's listening.
Even
Our
with
little show.
the disclaimer that I just gave, I still don't feel like I should probably talk about my feelings about Ari Grasswitch.
Yeah, we'll leave that where it is.
Well, let me tell you what I think of him.
Oh man.
Well, I think today is going to be an interesting episode. We don't often talk about national issues, let alone international issues, but this is a very important time, I think, in our country's history. As many of you know, the U.S. has announced that they will be pulling troops out of Afghanistan after 20 years of warfare out there. That's over half of, I think, all of our host
All
lives.
of our lives. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's just kind of an incredible moment. It's one of those things that just, as much as you don't want us to be doing this, imposing imperialism in these far off places, there is fallout to pulling out of something like this, and I think that's been really devastating to see. So yes, we will be discussing this international issue today. I do want to drive home that this is something that really does affect a lot of people in Sacramento, in part because 1 out of every 9 Afghan natives, right, living in the US actually lives in the Sacramento region. We have the largest population in the entire country of folks who have fled the conflict out there. And these are our neighbors, and these are people that I think a lot of us have gotten to know and love. And so it does tie home. On top of that, I'm sure some of us probably have friends and family, folks we know who have fought out there as well. So this all does sort of tie in together. But I also know that the 3 of us aren't experts necessarily on this subject matter. So, this might not be like your other shows discussing this topic, but I just kind of wanted to start it out with, like, I don't know. I just wanted to hear some reflections from you two on the imagery we saw over the weekend, on these planes leaving the Kabul airport and people hanging outside of the plane as it's taking off and then falling to their deaths, and how just like that's some really traumatic imagery, right? And I think that was really a bit of a shock to me to remind me just what is happening out there, how quickly it's happening, how the state that we spent 20 years setting up fell in under 2 weeks, and the people of Afghanistan have to deal with this. Can I just get a couple of initial reflections from you two on this?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's a lot. It's hard to watch, and it's hard to know just how many people are being left in the wake of just an irresponsible exit by the American military. And I think it has, I think the reflections honestly have been on what happens next for people. How do we there is no way to make what we have done or failed to do there better immediately. And also just the personal reflection of I was 18, 19 when all of this started, and feeling a little bit of sort of shame and embarrassment that I forgot about it at times. That it, a 20-year war was not on the forefront of my mind always. So I think there's a lot, and none of it is as much as the people of Afghanistan are having to face. So I say that outright. I think what they are going through and what we have done to that country is monstrous, or failed to do.
Skylar?
I mean, it is monstrous, and the only thing that I would push back on about what you said, Shannon, at all, is that we like failed to do a thing, right? Like, as far as I'm concerned, that mission is accomplished, right? Like, what were we looking to accomplish by going in there in the first place? It certainly wasn't to like get to the people who like did 9/11 or whatever, right? Like 15 out of 19 hijackers were Saudi. So we weren't in Afghanistan to do anything about that. Like, none of the reasons that they actually gave had anything to do with why we were there in the first place. And I don't know, like, obviously I wasn't in the room with the folks when they were having the discussion about what they were going to go do, but it looks to me like this is another American operation where we pay ourselves to go in and create a giant problem, and then we pay ourselves to fail to clean it back up. And when it is no longer profitable, we take our ball and we go home, and we just leave the area completely beyond screwed up. We take as little responsibility for that as we can. Everybody is sad about it, and it's like, oh man, like, what a shame, for a little while, and then we go in and we do it again. And so, like, I don't know, like, watching these videos like you're talking about, Dave, it's like to me, it's like kind of like the parallels obviously from like the fall of Saigon are very, very apparent and very obvious, right? And so to me, it is like, yeah, like it's nauseating, and it's also just like it's impossible for me to look at it without being like, all right, well, where's the next one going to be? Because we're going to do it
Totally.
again, right? Like, that's what we do. That's what the American military exists to perpetuate. That's where all of our money goes. You know, I mean, that's another thing that like, and not to like, because I think like another thing, I have a lot of feelings about this. I want to say, like, before I get into any of it, that the people who should be centered in this conversation are the Afghans. Like, like everything else that we're talking about, like, pales in comparison right now to like what those people are going through right now. But it's frustrating for a huge swath of reasons, right? I mean, I don't know. It's 20 years. It's like, you know, we've been doing this to these folks for 20 years. It's cost it's cost however much money it's cost, you know. And this is like, I mean,
according to the New York Times, it was about $2 trillion a couple years ago.
Right.
That's how much it's cost us, which is, you know, how many people can we have given healthcare here in our own
exactly
country?
Well, that's what I want to say, and I do want to be able to have this discussion without taking like I said, I think like the Afghani people deserve to be centered here, and I'm not trying to take away from that, but it is hard also for me to like look at this and not think like, what else could we have done, not just with like the money, but like with the time and with the effort and with like the amount of people who were employed to do a thing. Like, what if we took that energy and that money and did something constructive with it for fucking once, you know, instead of just continually over and over and over and over again, taking all of our money and resources and just ruining things,
ruining lives of countless people. You know, just this year so far, according to the International Rescue Committee, something like 550,000 people in Afghanistan have been, you know, forced to move, who they're trying to escape. Like, can you imagine how many people that is? Like, and that's our doing, right? That's our government's doing. And like, you know, we talk about what we set out there to do. I think that's a really important point, Skylar, because sometimes I look at these things, it's like, what did we set out to do in Afghanistan? And no one really knows. Not even our military top brass knew. Not even our top folks at the Capitol or the White House knew. The Washington Post came out with a piece in 2019 showing hundreds of interviews with the top brass in our military and in our political apparatus in this country, saying, we don't know why we're there. We don't even know who the enemy is. We don't know what we're doing. And yet we continue to pump money into this project, which tells me, and maybe this is a little too cynical, but it tells me that what we were really doing is funding the military industrial complex, funding the Raytheons of the world.
Of course.
Yeah,
lining their
totally.
pockets, because there's no good that has come of 20 years of this.
No.
We didn't improve poverty there. We didn't, we didn't improve the issue with heroin production out there, right? It's even more massively produced than it was 20 years ago. And I think a lot of Americans are affected by that crisis, right?
Well, also because of our involvement over there, didn't I read something along the lines of like heroin production is something like maybe the largest employer
yes,
in Afghanistan now, because of how badly we have wrecked things over there. Like
the largest employer,
right?
As well as one of the main economic drivers, other than just the military money getting pumped into this country, right?
Right.
So all of these things, they claimed that they wanted to do economic help build the economy there. None of that work resulted in anything. And then today, Monday, August 16th, President Biden comes home on an emergency trip back from Camp David, where he was on vacation, to give a press conference where he takes no questions. And he claims to take responsibility for everything that's happened out there. But he also, in the same breath, blames the Afghanistan military for not fighting the Taliban as they're leaving, right? He blames the people of Afghanistan for not pushing back and fighting back. And it's just, I don't know, like it really puts in clear view just what this was about and what they will be willing to do to cover their own asses in DC.
Well, and like a thing that occurred to me when I was watching Biden give that press conference today is like I think the reason why, it has to be a part of the reason why we're leaving so quickly and with so little planning, and it's just like a complete shit show, is that I think these, like, Biden has surmised, Biden and that, and this crew have correctly surmised that there are no consequences for them with this one way or another, right? Like, this is a bipartisan thing. It's not like some Republican's going to run on like an anti-war thing and it's going to make him look bad or whatever. Like, constant unending war and imperialism is bipartisan. There's no, it is not, we're not going to vote it out. He's not going to face any political consequences for it, other than like maybe, like for a while it'll be like, oh, like, Biden looked really bad when the thing at the airport happened in Kabul, right? But there's no, I just don't think, I think that he knows that they don't really have to care, because this thing, like, by us all going along with things, like with the status quo and voting for the status quo over and over and over and over and over again, we sign off on never-ending warfare, on constant imperialism. They're never going to stop doing it, because it's not like, this isn't, I guess, like, I don't know, I get like, this is a rambly way to get to this, but I'm not surprised by any of this. And it is like, the part that bothers me is that people are like, oh, like, this is so shocking or whatever. It's like, no, it's not. This is baked in to the fabric of this country. Like, this is the American way. There is like this is always how it has been. There has never been a period of time in this country where we weren't doing exactly this.
Yeah.
And so I guess, like, Biden's like, yeah, whatever, like, this is sad, what a bummer, Trump was worse, goodbye, is like, yeah, I mean, cool, whatever. What else are you gonna do? Who else are you gonna vote for?
Right.
What are your other options?
I'm the fourth president doing this war, and 2 were Democrats and 2 were Republicans. And,
Exactly.
There's not going to be a 5th,
yeah.
right? That's, I
So
mean, that's like the whole
he's-
thing.
He's claiming that as a win. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, that's upsetting, I think, in a lot of ways. The leftist conversation on this over the last few days has been that what needs to be the focus now is caring for refugees, helping the people of Afghanistan as best we can.
Yep.
And probably a discussion on reparations for everything we've done to their
100% yes.
Yes. Yeah.
And the second thing I think is a bit of a pipe dream. I hope it's not, but I mean, knowing who we are, I think it is. On the first thing, there will be many people flying out of the country. Already you have European leaders like, Macron in like France saying that like, oh, we got to make sure that we don't get all these refugees in our country, right? The whole neoliberal consensus, especially of Europe, saying that they don't want these folks who are fleeing this war-torn country. I worry that we will have the same thing here. Again, I'm very proud that Sacramento is a city that welcomes with open arms refugees. I think we need to be forward thinking and be ready for whatever challenges may be coming there. And then the third thing is what you were speaking to, Skylar, is will we learn our lesson on nation building, right? This absurd thing that we continue to go out to do in all these other countries.
That was in air quotes, by the way, just in case you're not watching this.
We go out to these countries throughout the world, we devastate them, demolish them internally, infrastructure gone, and then we say, oh, we're going to nation build, we're going to give you democracy, we're going to show you what it's like. And these are countries that have been so badly traumatized by our forces, by what it is we've done, that they don't trust us as far as they can throw us. And the only people who will work with us are often grifters and people who are at best amoral, right? And when we do finally leave, this is the result. It's a vacuum of power, and folks will, basically it will be as bad, if not worse, than what it was when we went in there, right? So yeah, those are the three things to me. It's like take care of the refugees, reparations, and stop doing this quote unquote nation building, right? But I just don't know if that's in the cards for a Joe Biden neoliberal administration.
Yeah, I mean, that's like thinking about the last two, considering the way that things have gone down the last couple of weeks, or in recent weeks, those last two things I don't think are being considered, but there is actual work to be done in terms of creating and holding safe and trauma-informed spaces for refugees here in Sacramento. And if as it goes, people care for people, right? It's like mutual aid efforts, and people just on the ground putting the word out, that or nonprofits that are doing this work. We had talked just before the show about IRC, International Rescue Committee, and NorCal Resist, who, if you don't follow them on Instagram, do that, because they put they posted something, I don't remember if it was today or yesterday, but that they're going to soon be looking for like furniture and food and clothing and things of that sort to help people who have arrived here with actually nothing. Because as we've seen in the photographs of people who are coming, who of refugees, they're like just smashed together on these military airplanes, just trying to like flee for safety because of the fear of what's going to happen with the government there. So I think this is it's a real opportunity, I think, for us to just welcome people and be kind in the midst of what is probably absolute chaos to them. And that, I don't know, and doing that without like the savior complex and the like the poor you and the, just like, because these are people who have been completely traumatized at the hands of the American government for 20 years.
20 years.
And when the people who did the traumatizing aren't going to step up and care for them, then the people who recognize the trauma can.
Yeah, we'll provide links for the International Rescue Committee as well as NorCal Resist. I know that both have done a lot of work over the years with refugees in our region. And during a time like this, I know over the weekend already folks were flying in from Afghanistan, and I'm sure many more will be coming. I don't know. Things are very touch and go and developing in real time out there right now, so we don't know what we don't know. I read a piece by Spencer Ackerman, a great journalist who's reported out there in Afghanistan a couple of times, and he was catching up with somebody who's doing aid work out there, and what they said was that the U.S. government, the military, basically has part of the Kabul airport. I think it's called the Karzai airport. They've got some of that secure, and they're trying to get mostly Americans out right now, and then their next priority will be translators and folks who have worked with the U.S. and the military to get them out, because they're probably among the first to be in danger of a Taliban regime. And my worry is I don't know how much they're focusing on the rest of the potential refugees and the rest of the people of Afghanistan. There is a single road that takes you to that airport. It is completely clogged up, and things just don't look good right now. And I'm not sure how that's going to pan out. I know the U.S. has said the Pentagon said they were going to send a few more thousand troops out there to kind of secure that area. But again, like, we just don't know how this all pans out. So that's where it is right now. But yeah, I mean, fully in agreement with Shannon that we have to focus on the refugees out here locally, because locally there's always a question of what can I do personally, right?
Right.
I think, the other thing is we've got like, this ties right back into the lack of affordable housing in our community. And like, I don't know what landlords are going to be listening to this show, but
This is the most popular show.
probably all of the landlords are tuning in. But it's just like, this is like a time, right? You've got refugees who have like lived in this 20 years of trauma, who end up getting put up in like extended stay hotels or anywhere, any hotel, right? Because who knows what's available when they get here. Like, folks should have a place to live. Like, I mean, everybody should. Housing is a human right, but I just can't I don't know. I was telling you earlier about listening to that episode of The Daily from today.
Today, Monday,
Where,
August 16th.
yes.
As
And
we
The day of the Guerrilla Learning Institute.
that is
meeting.
right. That is actually what we will call this day from now on.
Yeah. Freedom Tier Day.
So I was listening to the episode of The Daily, and it's just a series of voice memos that are shared between a woman who wants to be referred to as R for fear of Taliban retaliation. And she's sharing these voice memos with a journalist, and as she's sharing them, she's sort of like recounting what is going on like in real time, and then like sending those voice memos. And you hear the real questioning in her voice about what is like not knowing what's going to happen next, all the way through to the absolute fear, because she realizes that I think it's 2 or 3 cities have been taken over by the Taliban, and she just doesn't know what's going to happen next. She's like, I don't have anywhere to go. I don't know how to stay safe. Like, I don't know what's next here. And I just I think about her and people like her who, I mean, she might not make it out, but I don't know. I wish that the people that did had a place to go where they could actually feel comfortable. And I guess I'm just talking in circles, but super grateful for the people that are doing the work to, like the case managers for IRC show up at all hours of the day and night and do incredible work. And NorCal Resist does incredible work to help connect people to everything that they might need. So support them. I'm going to stop talking about that, but just support them.
Support them. No, and I think it's important you do bring that up, and I'm glad we do that before even the end of the episode on this one, because that should be our central focus. But there is, I don't think we're going in circles either in this conversation. There is something very stark about how fast this is all happening in Afghanistan. The Taliban, everyone who was paying attention knew that the Taliban had a control over a large portion of the country for a while now, right? And if they didn't control a large portion, they also contested large portions, and that US withdrawal would result in this. I think what is most surprising to people is how fast it fell. In 1975, I think it took about, up until 1975, it took about 2 years before Saigon eventually fell, right? And the U.S. had to make their escape out of there. This is so much faster, and it speaks to really how little the U.S. actually accomplished out there. $2 trillion in 2 decades, and it took 2 weeks for everything to effectively revert back to pre-2001 Taliban run era, right? And this is maybe a little reductive, but I don't think we should forget that. And yeah, I mean, what else is there to say other than will we learn anything from this, right? Like, can we?
I think our only way out of this, I don't know, and this is me being fairly cynical, so maybe, maybe there's a cooler way to be thinking about this, but I think part of me feels like the only way for us as a country out of this, where we just do this consistently, is selfishness. Cynically, I think that the average American is going to have to get to a point, because if you think about when we went into Vietnam, it was because they were commies or whatever, and we were doing democracy and protecting freedom or whatever. And they floated the same stuff back in 2001. You know, Bush was on his thing talking about freedom this and liberty that, like blah blah blah, and we got to go in and our brave troops are protecting our freedom overseas and and I think like what has to happen in order for them to at least have to change tactics a little bit and at least get smarter about it is that your average American has to like look at something like this, like 20 years, even if like, I'm going to say this, like just assuming that, you know, the person that I'm talking about doesn't care about the amount of dead people in Afghanistan who like aren't Americans, you know, and like don't care about that side of it. But they still are looking at like 20 years, trillions of dollars, a bunch of US troops who have died in conflict over there. And like people have to get to a point, I think, where it's like even the most cynical, selfish, asshole people still have to have a moment where it's like, well, what did I get out of this? Like, how did this help me? How is my life any different in a way that is better because we spent 20 years and $2 trillion and like in all of these lives? How are things better for me? And obviously they're not for any of us, right? Like nobody's life has been, literally nobody except for shareholders in companies like Raytheon are better off because of this war happening. And so I think that people are it is going to take selfishness. I think people are going to have to get to a point where it's like, no, like, okay, like, because it's also like, this is the whole thing, right? When you know, like we sort of have moved beyond this a little bit as a culture, maybe, hopefully, at least in this part of the country. But like when, you know, people are talking about healthcare and it's like, well, where are we going to get the money to pay for it? And this is just this glaring example of like, dude, we could have paid for it so many times over.
Or Green New Deal, or yeah,
exactly. Like any of this stuff is easily accomplishable, but we can't do it if we're doing this at the same time. And we also have like 5 times as many aircraft carriers as like the whole rest of the world combined, and each one of those costs like $100 billion. We can't do all of that stuff and do this stuff, you know. And I think that is what it's going to have to take, is for like asshole Americans to be like, oh, it's bad for me that they're doing this with my, you know, my tax money and, you know, my sons and daughters who are like going into this, like being fed into the system and going overseas and committing this stuff. And if they make it back, they come back screwed up, you know, and that's not even counting like the hundreds of thousands of deaths of the folks, you know, who live over there. And I think everybody is going to have to see it for being the waste and the atrocity that it is on this like macro scale. And I think that is what will have to happen in order to change it, because the government is set up to perpetuate the system. They're not going to we're not going to do the right thing. That's not going to, like these guys aren't going to wake up and be like, oh, this was bad, we shouldn't do this anymore. Like the American government exists to make money in this way, and it will continue to do so until
political will has to come from somewhere. And so many Americans, the way the derivation of their political will is self-interest. So I think that's probably pretty accurate.
I mean, another thing too that I want to point out, and this is a great time to remember this, is like people act like, oh, like, you know, the Republican Party's gotten worse and worse and politics are worse now than they've ever been or whatever. But like, no matter how many watercolors he paints and no matter how many football games he attends with Ellen DeGeneres, George W. Bush was like a million times more harmful than Donald Trump ever was. Like,
he's a war criminal.
Yeah,
George W. Bush and his cohorts are grifters on a scale that make Donald Trump look like chump change.
He should be tried at The Hague. There's no question.
All of them should be. Yeah. All of them should be. Like, makes me crazy to see people being like, oh, did you see this? Like, oh, you know, George W. Bush's retirement's going really well. He's watercolor painting. And then like we see this happen. And it's like, you don't do that. Don't let this guy get away with this stuff. You know, the cycle repeats. If you do that, if you're like, oh, cute, there, you know, he's at a football game with Ellen, like the cycle repeats as you do that. You can't do that.
Well, I think that's part of the interests of capital perpetuating the system, right? And Ellen being a multi
Right.
millionaire,
Right.
she helps humanize this
Right.
warmonger who should be rotting away for the rest of his sad life in a prison cell, probably, right? Um,
Like, yeah, war profiteers. I have no, there's like not to create to participate in a creation of a conflict like this just to like make you and your buddies some money is like, it's I don't have words for it. It's unconscionable.
Well,
I don't know.
everything that happened too is exactly what Bin Laden wanted to happen.
Yeah.
He got us mired in these very difficult land wars where we don't know the culture, we don't know the people, and we spend trillions and trillions of dollars to the detriment of our own people. He was basically, I mean, it's basically using the imperialist strengths against them, and he succeeded against us in that regard. And here we are, and we have to move on. And it's just what a disgusting 20 years it's been, I guess. You know, I know that in December 2001, not many people do know this, but the Taliban wanted to surrender after we were out there for what, a couple months, 2-3 months. And they said, just, give our leader like house arrest for the rest of his life and we'll surrender. And Rumsfeld and the Bush administration said no. And here we are 20 years later, and all these lives lost and nothing won, and $2 trillion later. And it makes you wonder, who won, right? And there's a part of me that gets really frustrated too, because I was a senior in high school when 9/11 happened, right? I think we were all similar ages, give or take. And we remember sort of you remember the animus, the sort of like, sadness, but also fear and rage happening in our country. And it resulted in a carte blanche for the Bush administration to do whatever they wanted. And in as much as the US has always been a very grotesque nation as far as warmongering goes, it really brought us to the next level, and it used our own trauma to bring us there. And that's a thing that like I hope none of us ever forget.
Yeah, sorry. I don't know. I just keep thinking about I'm like stuck on this humanizing George W. Bush
Right.
thing that like, and it's not an original thought by any means, but we have this problem here, which is that you have people who are supposed to be like radical, right? Like Ellen or Michelle Obama, right? Like
Radical Ellen.
These
Oh yeah,
these
doesn't
people
Michelle
are,
like gives him candies and stuff when they hang
right,
out,
like
right?
at football games and
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah, she does the
Or
Ted
like,
Lasso
I guess
thing.
you wouldn't
Good.
call them, people wouldn't call them radical, they would call them progressive, I guess. Who are able to just like overlook this like atrocious behavior. And then you have people like on the same side as that atrocious behavior who just like continue to uphold the military industrial complex, and who even like today, as the United States military is leaving Afghanistan, will come up with all of the different reasons why it was like necessary for us to be there. And they will villainize the people who are like jumping onto landing gear and falling to their deaths.
Right.
Like
Biden is calling them out for not fighting for their own country, when it's like, are you
it's just
kidding
like
me?
such a, I don't know, it's such like a shitty place to it comes as no surprise that the United States government has once again abused its power and left just a trail of trauma behind it, or is actively leaving, right? Just like horribleness behind, and just like will be able to wipe their hands clean. I think the frustrating thing about this in particular is the way that like I think both sides will find a way to make it okay.
Right.
And that is truly horrible, and that is where we end up deadlocked, because you can't move toward people, toward people's humanity, to help, right? To do the thing, which is like make sure that people are welcomed and sheltered, and begin to have conversations about reparations, and sit down and have like a debrief around like, how do we not do what we just did again? Because it just became 20 years of normalcy, and 20 years of people from both temperate sides saying this is totally fine.
Yeah. It's
what we should do. It's not that it's fine, it's that we should do this. This was the right thing to do.
I'm waiting for the next one, right? Then the next one where, Biden drums up a reason to go attack this nation unprovoked, and Lorne Michaels at Saturday Night Live, it makes them do a little song and dance, which they literally did in 2001 when we went and took over Afghanistan. Lorne Michaels is definitely a CIA asset. I'm just going to say that here. And I'm just waiting for the next one. And it's just, I think it's different. I think we do have a stronger push against this, but it's, none of this feels good, right? There's no I told you so about it.
I think there is one silver lining, which is that the world's wealthiest people have never been wealthier in the history of the planet. So
I saw Nancy Pelosi made a lot of money this year, and I'm very happy for her.
So that's going really well. So
way to go, Nance.
The people who perpetuate the system and profit from it are not only getting away with it, but they're doing it in a way that is completely unprecedented. And they're doing, we live at a time where the best people in the history of humanity at doing this are at the top of their game. So at least we have front row seats for that.
Success.
Speaking of being fabulously wealthy beyond reason, I hear there's a site called Patreon that people could navigate to on their browsers or mobile phones. Dave, can you tell me a little bit more about this place?
Yes, I'm glad you couched it that way. That's very attractive. Listeners, help us become disgustingly rich by supporting our show.
Keep us in the freedom tier.
We do, of course, every Tuesday is a free episode, but we're trying to build something larger. So on Fridays, we have patron only episodes. Right now, that's only for our top 200 folks, our freedom tier, liberty tier, blordom tiers, who just really They just want to know what it feels like to feel free on their Fridays, and they want to hear us really
That's right.
talk trash about capitalism and speak up some of the alternative systems out there. We are having a lot of fun with the show, and we'd really like to grow it out, not just here in Sacramento, but like maybe in a different city someday soon. So every patronage, every person who puts down as little as $5 a month, you're helping us spread the word of socialism, of anti-capitalism, of the climate crisis, of anti-racism, all of these things that are really, really important to us, at that we just want to make sure that every city hall does not go unchecked in this country. And so feel free to become a patron to help with that. We got our site, voicesrivercity.com. We have a little store, voicesrivercity.com/shop. You can go check that out and get some merch. And then we're also on the socials, on Facebook, Voices River City, Twitter and Instagram at Voices River City. I am on Twitter at Kempa, YUKNOWKEMPA.
You can find me speaking for myself and only myself on Twitter at Guillotine for You. That is Guillotine, the number 4 YOU.
He's so grown up.
He's all grossed up and he's all grossed up. I'm Shan N.D. Stevens.
And you can find Flo Jean speaking for me personally, as well as for the U.S. Department of Justice at FLOJUNE.
Flo speaks for me too. I'll just
Yeah,
say it.
same.
Yeah.
Flo speaks for everyone.
She speaks for us all.
We're all the people.
Hashtag
Sacramento.
Flo for Prez.
Oh, I don't tread those waters anymore.
She's gone. What's she gonna do to me? She's not here today.
Train
Famous
listens
last
to the show.
words. Hashtag vote no on recall.
Oh yeah, do that.
Vote no on recall. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
I've
if
got a couple
you-
friends who are like whatever about it, but like this is literally a power grab by a bunch of far right fascists. And
Yeah.
in as much as we all hate Gavin Newsom,
Yeah.
it's
Vote no
important
on
to
the
fight
recall.
him, and it's
Just do
important to
it.
have a democratic process in this state, and we can fight him the right way. And he's also not anywhere near as bad as some of these fucking monsters.
just garbage dump any elder signs you see
Yeah.
anywhere. Just if you want. If I'm not advocating for that.
Theoretically, like
If you-
metaphorically.
If you saw an elder sign somewhere and you pulled it down and put it into the garbage
Throw it out in the video game. Yeah.
in the this is in the video.
We're talking about a video game here where you throw out Larry Elder signs.
Jeez.
Yeah, it's something. The Party for Socialism and Liberation came out for voting no. So that tells you something, that something really is afoot and we have to fight against it.
Yep. All right. That's it. That's the official Voices Rec.
All right.
Vote no on the recall. And until then,
Oh.
I'm doing it because I'm on the show. So
Wow.
until then, we love you. And we want you to stay safe.
Stay sane.
Stay healthy.
And stay away from me. There's a third surge. Who knew? But yeah, stay away from
Flo new.
me.
Flo new. I almost forgot my line.